Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Alarmed over human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, EU lawmakers say the issue is a humanitarian crisis posing a threat to regional stability. In a letter to the EU Commission chief, they said the dispute is a flashpoint between India and Pakistan and any miscalculation can lead to unwarranted consequences. They urge the EU to raise voice for oppressed Kashmiris living under Indian occupation. The US and Pakistan have called for a negotiated political settlement and reduction of violence in Afghanistan. Pakistan's National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf met his American counterpart, Jake Sullivan, in Washington. In a tweet, Sullivan said they consulted on regional connectivity and other areas of cooperation. Meanwhile, the first flight evacuating more than 200 Afghan interpreters has landed in Washington. In Pakistan, authorities have decided to impose a lockdown in Sindh province till the 8th of August amid rising coronavirus cases. The country reported more than 4,500 cases during the last 24 hours, the highest since late April. Meanwhile, Japan is extending a state of emergency in Tokyo and surrounding regions as the Olympic Games host faces a surge in infections. Globally, there are now more than 4.2 million deaths and over 196 million infections. Beijing has warned the UK not to carry out any improper acts as its carrier strike group enters the South China Sea. A pro-government newspaper quoted the Chinese military as saying that it is in a state of high alert and continuously monitoring the movement of the carrier group. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Alarmed over human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, EU lawmakers say the issue is a humanitarian crisis posing a threat to regional stability. In a letter to the EU Commission chief, they said the dispute is a flashpoint between India and Pakistan and any miscalculation can lead to unwarranted consequences. They said the security situation in the occupied valley has further deteriorated after the revocation of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. The letter said the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act has also caused unrest within the valley. It said EU should cooperate with India and Pakistan to create an environment conducive to implementation of the UN resolutions. They urged the EU to raise voice for oppressed Kashmiris living under Indian occupation. The US and Pakistan have discussed the need for a negotiated political settlement and reduction of violence in Afghanistan. Pakistan's National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf met his American counterpart, Jake Sullivan, in Washington. In a tweet, Sullivan said they consulted on regional connectivity and other areas of cooperation. Meanwhile, Yusuf said the two sides agreed to sustain the momentum in bilateral ties. He said they took stock of progress made since the Geneva meeting and discussed bilateral and regional issues. Beijing has warned the UK not to carry out any improper acts as its carrier strike group enters the South China Sea. A pro-government newspaper quoted the Chinese military as saying that it is in a state of high alert and continuously monitoring the movement of the carrier group. It also accusing Britain of still living in its colonial days, while the UK has announced a so-called freedom of navigation exercise through the South China Sea. Washington and London have challenged Beijing's claims to sovereignty in the area by purposely sailing through the sea. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has concluded his two-day visit to Bahrain. In a message before returning, Qureshi said he discussed the progress made regarding the MOU signed with Bahrain's foreign minister. The two sides discussed ways to promote trade, economic cooperation and investment. The foreign minister also headed the second sitting of the Joint Ministerial Commission. Earlier, Qureshi called on Bahrain's king, Hamd bin Isa Al Khalifa, in Manama. Pakistan's foreign minister said Pakistan is committed to expanding bilateral cooperation with Bahrain. He also conveyed the warm regards of the President and the Prime Minister to the King of Bahrain. Pakistan has reported 86 coronavirus deaths in the last 24 hours, the highest since the 2nd of June. With more than 4,500 cases, the number of daily infections in the country also jumped to a 3-month high. The worst-hit region in Pakistan is Sindh, where authorities have decided to impose a lockdown till the 8th of August. There will be a ban on intercity travel and all markets will remain closed in the province. Pharmacies, however, will remain open. Pakistan's caseload has now exceeded 1,024,000, while the death toll approaches 23,300. For more on this, we have Dr. Wasim Khwaja, Medical Coordinator, PIMS Islamabad, with us. Sir, thank you for your time. Dr. Wasim, Karachi has imposed a week-long lockdown to stem the spread of the virus, but the government still hasn't cut down inter-provincial travel. Do you believe this can lead to a countrywide spread?
It's increasing, not in in Islamabad, but also in Karachi and all the country. It is increasing, and the people are requested to follow the SOP. They must go for vaccination also, and also there should be shouldn't be closed schools and colleges because they will be gathering more, and disease can be spread if schools are open or colleges are open. And should we avoid any function, avoid to go any function or gathering shouldn't be there anywhere, at any place. So I request all the persons to follow the SOP and request the government not open the schools and colleges unless the disease is less, because it is now increasing day by day.
Right. Dr. Wasim, according to international best practices, what would be the best way to guard against this highly infectious and damaging India Delta variant?
In the same thing, it's the best is to have to follow the vaccination and follow the SOPs. Because if you don't follow the SOP, then disease will spread. And the thing which I have told, we must follow all these things so that any disease should not spread. Any kind of coronavirus should not be spread if you follow the SOPs. If you not follow the SOP, then different diseases of corona types, they will spread.
Dr. Wasim, if the situation is so concerning, is the decision of opening institutions nationwide a lapse of judgment by the doctors advising the government?
Yes, I will request the government to please do not open the schools, colleges unless the disease is less. And you must follow the SOPs as the students also. And it's the best way not to open the school and colleges and any gathering. I will request government.
Dr. Wasim Khwaja, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. Brazil has reported more than 1,300 deaths from COVID-19 for the third day in a row. The Latin American country also recorded over 42,000 new cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, there are over 4.1 million fatalities and around 196 million infections so far. Details in the following report.
Governments around the world are racing against time to head off a surge in coronavirus cases driven by the Delta variant. The World Health Organization has warned that the highly transmissible strain could unleash a fourth wave in the eastern Mediterranean zone, an area stretching from Morocco to Pakistan. In the United States, President Joe Biden stepped up efforts to stem an American tragedy fueled by the Delta variant and lagging vaccination rates. He announced that all federal workers are required either to furnish proof of vaccination or submit to a series of safety protocols.
And I hope all Americans who live in areas with substantial or high case rates will follow the mask guidance that's being laid down by the CDC. I certainly will, and I have, because this is one of those areas in Washington. And at my decision, in my direction, All federal personnel and visitors to federal buildings will have to do the same thing.
In the latest spat over COVID-19 origins, China has accused the United States of being guilty of 3 sins. Beijing said Washington is allowing the untracked spread of the virus, hiding the truth about it, and seeking origin tracing terrorism. The United Kingdom has warned that half of the coup-wrecked Myanmar's population could become infected within the next 2 weeks.
The coup has resulted in a near total collapse of the healthcare system, and healthcare workers are being attacked and arrested. The virus is spreading through the population very fast indeed. By some estimates, in the next 2 weeks, half of the population of Myanmar could be infected with COVID.
While the Philippines is imposing lockdown measures in the capital, Manila, to contain the spread of the Delta variant. In Japan, the government is extending a state of emergency to Tokyo as cases surge in a week into the pandemic-postponed Olympics.
Russia has redeployed peacekeepers and military commandos in Uzbekistan for joint drills on the border with Afghanistan. The Central Military District says the drills will focus on protecting the state's territorial integrity. It said Russian military personnel, weapons and equipment have also been airlifted from the Samara region. About 1,500 Russian and Uzbek troops are participating in the joint drills from July 30th to August 10th. Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte has restored a key military pact with the U.S. more than a year after moving to terminate it. The Visiting Forces Agreement provides rules for the rotation of U.S. troops in and out of the Philippines for war drills. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced the decision in a joint presser with his counterpart Delfin Lorenza in Manila. Austin said the decision provides the U.S. certainty in its role in counterinsurgency efforts in the Southeast Asian country. Lorenza said the Philippine-U.S. alliance will remain vital to the security, stability and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific. In a statement, Duterte's spokesperson said the decision is aimed at upholding the country's strategic interests. The U.S. Congress has approved emergency funding for capital security and the Afghan refugees. The $2.1 billion bill was passed by a vote of 416 to 11. The bill now goes to President Joe Biden for his signatures. It includes almost $1 billion for security forces and police under strain after the January 6 attack. Meanwhile, over $1 billion are for the Special Immigrant Visa Program to assist Afghan interpreters. The funding includes humanitarian aid for the inevitable flood of Afghans fleeing to neighboring countries. Meanwhile, the first flight evacuating more than 200 Afghan interpreters has landed in Washington. The death toll from wildfires on Turkey's southern coast has risen to 4. Officials say more than 60 wildfires broke out across 17 provinces on the Aegean and Mediterranean coasts. Firefighters are battling blazes for the 3rd day after the evacuation of dozens of villages and some hotels. Authorities launched investigations into the fires, pledging to hold those responsible to account. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi condoled with Turkey over the loss of lives and property. In a tweet, he also offered support to the Turkish government. Meanwhile, his Turkish counterpart Mevlut Cavusoglu lauded Pakistan's invaluable solidarity. In Sudan, authorities have warned of flooding in the Blue Nile following heavy rains. The irrigation ministry said the water level on the borders with Ethiopia rose to 550 million cubic meters. In a statement, the ministry said the flooding level stands at 601 million cubic meters. It said within the next 3 days, the rate of water discharge from Ethiopia will be up to 550 million cubic meters. The authorities also announced an emergency in the Merur Dam, around 400 kilometers north of Khartoum. In Pakistan, conflicts within the ruling Tehreek-e-Insaf party have resurfaced, jeopardizing Prime Minister Imran Khan's government. A 34-member group loyal to PTI stalwart Jahangir Tareen had threatened to abandon the party earlier this year. The group says decision to continue backing the government will be reviewed in light of recent developments. This comes after Nazir Chauhan, a senior member of the Tareen group, was arrested for speaking against the Prime Minister's advisor. Tensions rose between PTI's top brass and Jahangir Tareen after he was named in a corruption probe. Prime Minister Imran Khan was criticized for compromising on his stance against corruption to mend ties with the group. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. NASA has postponed the launch of a Boeing Starliner capsule after a mishap at the International Space Station. The station was briefly thrown out of control by jet thrusters accidentally activated on a newly docked Russian module. In a statement, the agency said the launch was delayed because the position of the station was altered. NASA said the loss of altitudinal control of the space station with 7 crew members aboard lasted just over 45 minutes. It said it is yet to be determined that what caused the thrusters of the Nauka module to malfunction. The space agency and Boeing decided to push back the launch date to August 3rd with August 4th as a backup. Meanwhile, the head of Russia's space agency said everything is fine aboard the station now. China's Zhurong rover has started traversing a complex terrain area on Mars, riddled with rocks, impact craters and dunes. China National Space Administration says Zhurong has completed a survey of the second dune and continued moving southward. It said the rover arrived in the complex terrain area earlier this week. As China's first rover to land on another planet, Zhurong is part of Tianwen-1 mission to Mars. It has been working on the Martian surface for 75 Martian days, traveling 708 meters. Tianwen-1 spacecraft consists of the orbiter and the rover, as well as a lander, was launched on July 23, 2020. In the U.S., 2 tornadoes ripped through eastern Pennsylvania, injuring several people and leaving a trail of destruction. The country is witnessing severe weather, causing wildfires, flood, drought and tornadoes. This report has the details.
Heat waves, floods, wildfires. It has been a destructive summer so far in the United States, and forecasts for droughts, fires, and hurricanes are looking downright bleak. The warm and humid air has also caused a lot of tornadoes recently, the latest in Pennsylvania. In Buck County, twisters collapsed the roof of a car dealership, resulting in at least 5 injuries. Officials say there is a lot of structural damage in the area.
The Faulkner area just looked like a TV show. It just looked like a bomb went off. I mean, it's gone. Water flowing. You could smell gas until PICO was able to get out there and shut things and secure things. You know, I've been doing this for 34 years. I never saw that kind of devastation.
There has been about 2 degrees Fahrenheit of warming so far worldwide. Experts say the numbers sound small, but it is enough to profoundly shift the statistics of extreme heat events. Nearly a quarter of the United States population is facing heat waves or advisories as sweltering temperatures stretch in a band of misery that includes parts of 20 states from Washington to Florida. The raging Dixie Fire has burned through swaths of Northern California. The blaze has consumed more than 221,000 acres, and only 23% has been contained. In neighboring Oregon, the Bootleg Fire is estimated at over 413,000 acres and 53% containment. Evacuations to safer places continue.
I don't want everything to burn up, and it makes me sick because the entire forest is burning now. The places I take my grandkids fishing is probably gone. It takes forever for things to come back.
Earlier, a cloud of dust moved towards the Phoenix suburb as weather agencies warned of a drop in visibility to 1 mile or less.
In China, the world's highest bungee jump is open to visitors in Hunan province. Thrill seekers can leap into the abyss from a glass-bottomed suspension bridge. More in this report.
Straddled between 2 cliffs in China's Hunan province, a 430-meter glass-bottomed suspension bridge offers the world's highest bungee jump from a footbridge.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Visitors to the Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon Glass Bridge can leap a height of 260 meters, a stomach-churning way to take in the views of the surrounding Wulingyuan Wilderness, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The area, a popular international tourist attraction, is famous for its quartzite sandstone pillars and peaks extending into the clouds, along with deep ravines and gorges.
4, 3, 2, 1, go!
This bridge is amazingly safe. I mean, I've worked on a lot of bridges and cantilever arms and towers, and this is an amazing design. I love it because the suspension bridge reminds me of the bridge I started off back in New Zealand in the late 80s, the Kawara. No, it's beautiful. And the height makes it actually even more intriguing. It's one of the highest bungees in the world.
The bungee jumping operation opened at the end of 2020, delayed by the restrictions imposed by the Chinese government because of the coronavirus pandemic. To compensate for the lack of foreign tourists, the cost of a jump has been cut by around 40% to RMB 1998, roughly $306.
It's been great since we've opened up. The numbers have increased daily. We're looking forward to this July-August period to hopefully the numbers come up even more. We're probably averaging 20 jumps a day at the moment, which is pretty good for a jump of the size.
The pedestrian bridge was designed by Israeli architect Haim Dotan and opened in August 2016. It was once the longest glass-bottom suspension bridge in the world.
The U.S. economy grew at an annual rate of 6.5% in the second quarter. It rebounded less than forecast, but still not got back to pre-COVID-19 levels. The Commerce Department reported that the U.S. economy climbed to $19.4 trillion. The data showed that inflation is spiking as demand returns from its depressed levels a year ago. The pandemic caused a sharp downturn in this country last year, with the economy shrinking 3.5%. Massive government spending as well as vaccinations are expected to propel the country out of its slump. The International Monetary Fund predicts growth to increase up to 7% this year. European stocks have retreated after closing the previous session at all-time highs. Investors reacted to another deluge of corporate earnings and economic data. Frankfurt stocks led the losses by dropping close to 1%. FTSE in London also edged over 0.75% lower. The Pan-European Stock 600 index was lower by over 0.5%. Italy's FTSE MIB shed nearly 0.5%. The CAC in Paris also dipped marginally. For the weather updates, we have Nala Shuja with us.
Thank you. We're going to start off with Abu Dhabi, where the weather is expected to be extremely hot, with temperatures rising to 42 degrees Celsius. While in Amsterdam, rainy weather is anticipated with temperatures at 21 degrees Celsius. If we head to Ankara, the weather is sunny with temperatures moving at 34 degrees Celsius. Moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 17 degrees Celsius with some clouds overhead. Now, if you are traveling to Bangkok, there will be rain in the forecast with temperatures around 34 degrees Celsius. In Beijing, dark clouds are veiling the sun and the rain is expected with temperatures around 28 degrees Celsius. While Beirut will be experiencing some sunny weather with temperatures at 32 degrees Celsius. Berliners will be experiencing temperatures at 24 degrees Celsius with some clouds making the weather even more pleasant. Now heading to Cairo, the sun will be out with temperatures at 39 degrees Celsius. Down under in Canberra, the temperatures are around 12 degrees Celsius with some sun overhead. In Islamabad, the temperatures are 31 degrees Celsius, accompanied by severe thunderstorms. While in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 34 degrees Celsius with some sunny sky in the forecast. That's all for now. Back to you.
That's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.